Welcome back to Identity Architects, the podcast that's designed to spotlight pioneers in our industry who are changing the way that data is used to drive more engaging data-driven experiences. I'm your host, Ben Cicchetti, and for this episode, our VP of Product Marketing, Devon DeBlasio, sat down with Shailley Singh, COO and EVP of Product at IAB Tech Labs, to discuss the work of the IAB Tech Labs, data privacy, data cleanroom standards, identity, and much, much more. Before I hand it over to Devon, just a reminder to hit that subscribe button so you know when the latest episodes of Identity Architects land. But without any further delay, here's Devon's chat with Shailley.
Well, hi, Shailley. How you doing? Welcome to the Identity Architects podcast via InfoSum. My name and your host today is Devon DeBlasio, the VP of Product Marketing at InfoSum. Just want to have a warm welcome to Shailley Singh, the COO and EVP of Product at the IAB Tech Lab. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, so for those of us who don't know, I don't know who those would be for anyone listening to this podcast, but can you just give us a brief overview of kind of who you are and your role at the IAB Tech Lab, and also just a high-level overview of who is the IAB Tech Lab? What are they responsible for, and what do they do?
Yeah, so like you said, I'm the EVP product and CEO at IAB Tech Lab. So I kind of look after all of the work that we do at IAB Tech Lab. That includes all of the standards, our compliance programs, and our software that we provide to the industry. Been here for about a little over 8 years now at IAB Tech Lab. I was one of the first couple people to join IAB Tech Lab when that was created. So like I said, I lead most of the products, but personally, I've kind of led a few products in the past. One is the new ad product portfolio, all of the new ad formats, the MRAID version 3, also the Open Measurement SDK project was something that I led. And I've led other working groups like investigations into blockchain for a couple of years.
Okay.
Started the privacy enhancing technologies working group. So that's kind of part of the work that we do. Besides the standards that we create, we also kind of investigate new emerging technologies and ensure that we be keeping the industry up to date on what's coming.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone in the advertising and marketing ecosystem, the IAB Tech Lab is a huge component to keep everyone on track. I've been a member of the IAB Tech Lab and an engaged kind of participant in many of those working groups for many years at numerous roles. And so I'm assuming many of our listeners probably already know the IAB Tech Lab, work with them in some way, shape, or form, either in America or in some of the other countries where the Tech Lab exists. And we have a lot of information to dig into, specifically around clean rooms and privacy enhancing technology and all the great things that we've worked on together specifically. But we want to kick off with a couple icebreakers just so we can kind of shake off the rust and kind of get things going. If you just want to bear with me in some of these initial questions, just to give a little bit more insight about who you are and kind of where you're coming from and your path to how you got essentially led to where you are today. So taking as many steps back as this takes you, what was your first job in either advertising or marketing that you can recall?
Yeah, so my first job in advertising was about 12, 13 years ago when I joined a company called Say Media. It was an ad network
Okay.
on rich media advertising. I was looking after all of the back-end trafficking operations and the not the operations itself, but the software to enable the trafficking and the creative operations, the pricing, predictable pricing. So those were the things I started off in advertising with, and it was a great experience to be in an ad network, to be able to see all sides and
Sure.
learn a lot in a very short time.
Yeah, I mean, rich media, it's taking me back. My first job was in rich media, expanding ads. Remember that back in the day, working at an ad server. So I think both of us jumping into kind of learning how the ecosystem worked, I think has definitely kind of set the stage for where we are today in terms of leaning into more of the technical side of the industry. And so just thinking about like what you know now at the Tech Lab and all of your previous experience, what would you say to yourself when you were starting your career back, 12, 13 years ago at that ad network?
I would say go for it. Like, it's been a great ride. Like, this industry is evolves fast. There's a technology evolution like every 1 to 2 years, and
Yeah.
keeps you up on your feet all the time.
Yeah, it's always ongoing, and I think the people don't realize that advertising and marketing, specifically in the world we're in, is essentially just directly tied to the internet and how fast the internet and technology advance, and it does keep you busy. It keeps you up at night, I assume, as well, in many ways, shapes, or forms. But not focusing on the negative, more focusing on the positive. What do you love about your job and your role right now, and specifically the industry, and why do you work at the tech lab?
I mean, digital advertising is it's like the lifeblood of the internet, right?
Yeah.
This is how the internet moves. Um, Over the years, like digital ad supported internet has been able to bring like information to the masses, make it free flowing. It's also supported a lot of entrepreneurs to be able to disrupt and challenge big companies and big industries. So that's really interesting. And at IAB Tech Lab, to be at the center of it all, to be able to talk to experts like yourself and others, and understand the ideas and build some of the foundational work that powers all of the digital advertising on the internet. That's really what keeps me going and makes it every day a new interesting day.
I completely agree with you. I mean, it keeps the internet free and moving for the most part, at least. And there's people can argue on either side of that fence. But what about what keeps you up at night? What are the things that you think about that maybe kind of are unsettling to you that you're working to fight against?
Losing the free internet, like there's a lot of fragmentation happening with new platforms, wall gardens, etc., and that kind of are taking away the wind out of the open internet for some time. So we want to keep the standards. We want to make sure that there are standards that allow everybody to interoperate and keep an open ecosystem going. I think that's what keeps me up at night.
I agree, and I think that's definitely something that a rally call that everyone is leaning into now, with all the things that are happening around privacy and technology and things around identity. I mean, I worked at an identity platform for many years. I know that identity is one of the core kind of components that the Tech Lab and the IAB standard are looking at on a daily basis. And for those of us who maybe aren't aware who are listening to this podcast, I'm just curious from your point of view at the Tech Lab, what is your definition of identity? What's the easiest way to describe kind of how all of this digital technology is coming together to form what we're really seeing as the currency that's moving advertising forward, which is this concept of identity or customer identity?
Mhm. Yeah, so identity is like, I mean, to explain to a 10-year-old, like it is about you, like your skin color, your eye color, or what you look like, how tall are you, and also it's about who you are, like what who's your hero, what movies do you watch, what sports do you play, and that's what advertisers want to know about. When you're watching content or you're consuming content to show you ads, they want to know who you are so they can present you with an ad that's relevant to you and your life at that point in time. And that's what identity is all about: to be able to know these users, to be able to find them, and present an ad on different uh, sources or different experiences that they're having on the internet.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, again, there's a lot of components to go into what identity is, and I think there's a lot of debate in terms of what is, acceptable versus not acceptable, and what can be used at what point in time. And I know that the IAB and the IAB Tech Lab are doing a lot to define what those standards are and work across the industry, bringing all people together to kind of build consensus around what is viable, what is not viable in terms of use and consent, and all the ways in which organizations who have to use this data or these data assets, what their limitations are. And so I know there's a couple working groups and projects that are happening simultaneously that you're responsible for. I also know the IAB itself is doing a lot of additional work as well. But for all of us, can you just kind of set the record straight in defining the difference between the IAB Tech Lab and just the IAB, just to kind of give a sense of where you sit in that ecosystem and where the differences and the similarities are between the two organizations?
So IABs, there are IABs are based on country or region. Like there's IAB in IAB US, there's IAB Canada, there's IAB Europe, there's IAB UK, and so on and so forth. There are about 46 IABs across the
Okay.
world. IABs will typically focus their work on business side of things like policy, research, business practices. Whereas IAB Tech Lab is more of a global organization. We are a single organization. We work with all of the 46 IABs across the globe.
Mhm.
And our charter is to build the technical standards or the technology foundations that support the uh, 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 support things like programmatic transactions, data measurement, etc. So we look at we build all the standards. We also, whenever there's a need from the industry, we will go ahead and build the software like the Open Measurement SDK. We also
Mhm.
maintain a open GitHub repository of open source projects for different functions and utilities. We also maintain a transparency center to kind of collect all of the metadata, publicly available metadata in a structured format for everyone to use. And then we also have compliance programs. So we do these three things to ensure that the industry has the right foundation for being able to trust each other and participate in an open ecosystem.
I mean, it's a lot of work and a lot of necessary work that has to be done. And again, I know the Tech Lab specifically has a set of core individuals who work there. It's a full-time job for you and many others who are there. But there's also a lot of members, like InfoSum is a member, obviously, that are participating in this. Can you just give it a sense of the membership kind of profiles, like who actually is helping push these standards and these practices, and who is a part of these working groups at a high level?
I mean, almost everyone. So we have about like 1,000 members or so across the globe. A lot of them common with other IABs. So there's a lot of publishers. There's of course the ad technology providers. There's agencies. We even have some brands participating. So we have like the end-to-end ecosystem from buyers to sellers to participate in our working groups and inform the work that we do.
All right. I mean, that's critical to get that consensus across the board and almost kind of democratizing how the standards need to be set, which I think is really the only way we can do it. But I know it's not easy. I've been in these working groups. It can take some time to get some of these standards out the door with a lot of opinions involved. And I want to dig into a couple of these working groups just to give our listeners some idea as to what actual activities and investments that you and the IAB Tech Lab are making. And so can you tell us first and foremost about Project Rearc? What is Project Rearc, and what is kind of the goal of Project Rearc as one of the working groups?
So Project Rearc is like an umbrella project that has several pillars under it. We started Project Rearc way back in 2019, especially
Hmm.
when privacy regulations were coming into force in different regions, and platforms had started taking actions about privacy of their users, like deprecation of third-party cookies,
Right.
and some other actions that Apple has taken afterwards, and Google's also kind of following that same direction. So there was a real industry direction overall, not just the ad tech industry, but also the industry, wider internet industry, and so. So the Project React was an umbrella project to address the issues that the advertising industry would face because of this, and how to find the or re-architecting the whole system to be more privacy and more secure for consumers, and still balance the business needs from advertisers and publishers and ad tech vendors.
So it's
Um,
not just dedicated specifically to the programmatic supply chain, but the supply chain kind of in general, right? Anywhere where data is used
yeah,
to
it's
drive an advertisement, well, I guess we call addressability, right? Which I think is part of the title
yeah,
of the rearc.
three areas of reorg basically. One was privacy, which is to deal
Mhm.
with privacy regulations, like how do you comply with those privacy regulations in a way that helps you scale and continue your growth. The second was addressability, which is about identity and finding the audiences or that the advertiser wants across the internet. And the third one was accountability, to prove to the rest of the world that this industry is accountable and we honor the privacy choices that users are making. So those are the three pillars under reorg that's being worked on now.
I mean, that all makes sense. And kind of where those intersect, and obviously where InfoSum comes in the picture, where we've started to help, is around the clean room standards and some of these things that have been worked on. And I know that recently, over the past month, two documents were actually released for public comment, which is a process I believe the IAB Tech Lab goes through, where you have all the members, we go into the working groups. I was a part of both of these documents and creating them, and then we release them for public comment for people who are not part or not members of the Tech Lab necessarily, to provide additional feedback, and then you essentially close it, and then you move along, with the next iteration of that particular document or standard. But can you just go into detail, like what were the two recent kind of documents or standards that were released in the past month through the Project Rearc and addressability working groups?
So the two documents that we released were one was the data clean rooms guidance and best practices document. That was a more overarching document covering comprehensively what data clean rooms are and what you should know about them as an industry. And the second one was a very specific use case based specification, open private join and activation, or OPJ as the working group calls it now. So that focused on how do you execute an operation in a data clean room to find overlapping audiences between a buyer and a seller.
Mm-hmm.
And that focused mainly on the specification, the kind of encryption technologies that you want to use, and the full process and workflow on how you activate those audiences over the internet using either an SSP or a DSP for activation.
Got it. Okay. I mean, and obviously, data clean rooms and the concept of data collaboration have been around for many, many years. Obviously, with InfoSum, we started in Europe through GDPR about 5 to 7 years ago. But in America, we've started to see kind of the clean room nomenclature and the concept of data clean rooms really take off. Really, I would say aggressively in the past 3 years. So why recently? Why in 2023 did the Tech Lab decide that this was the appropriate time to release some of these standards and guidelines and recommendations?
I think our CEO puts it nicely. Like, you mention a clean room, the word clean room in a meeting, and it's like throwing a grenade, and everybody goes off with different meaning and understanding. But the way this industry operates is pretty sophisticated. There are multiple people who come together and they on a particular transaction, and they collaborate on making it work. So one of the important things in the industry is to have interoperability, a common understanding, common taxonomy, and specifications with well-defined APIs or formats, so that all the partners can talk to each other. I think that those were the driving forces for us to create these two documents. The first one establishes the common understanding, the common taxonomy, and the second one establishes like a well-defined format and specification to execute one particular operation. So that's how those were the driving factors.
It makes sense. I mean, obviously, one of the biggest hurdles for me in the product marketing kind of seat at an emerging clean room was that before we even could talk about our specialty, our differentiation, it was just trying to get through the definition of what a clean room was and setting that straight with whether it's a brand or a publisher or a data provider or anyone who would utilize a clean room. And I know that was a big hurdle for anyone in the industry who is calling themselves a data clean room. And I think that one of the hugest values from that guidance and recommendation document was that common definition that we all could agree upon. Can you just kind of let us know where do we actually land on? I know what it is, but for our listeners, where do we land on in terms of what that common definition or common criteria is for clean rooms that the IAB Tech Lab and the members have defined?
Exactly. So yeah, when we initially started the discussion, this was pretty interesting. So someone in the working group basically mentioned that if I trust somebody and I have a signed agreement and I don't need anything else, I can just collaborate on the data and
Mm-hmm.
clean room. And I was like, oh, this is not like your grandma's ETL machine, like that you can dust up and shine up and call it a
Right.
clean room. And it is hard to define a clean room because there are different flavors of it available. It's an evolving um, um, uh, uh, product category, and people are coming up with different innovative ideas on how to execute a clean room, data clean room. What the working group did was, instead of having like a one-two line definition, we went about describing some of the key characteristics.
Hmm.
that define a modern data clean room that you should look at, that helps you kind of cut through the bullshit and identify that what is a proper data clean room. So some of these characteristics were, one was isolation of data, that one party operating in a clean room should not be able to learn the other party's data, but
Yep.
still be able to extract inferences that they need for their business purpose. The second one was privacy enhancing technologies, that a clean room must deploy at least one or more privacy enhancing technologies to ensure the privacy preservance of the personal data that's involved in the data sets. The third one was beyond just applying PETs. We know that there are still vulnerabilities and scenarios of threat or collusion that can still render all of your work meaningless if somebody is able to break that chain. So then there are the clean room should apply certain governance and control in the use cases and from end to end purposes, so that your your privacy's personal data is preserved, and your personal information of consumers that is involved in the data set is secured. And the third is, of course, governance control. Like any other system, we define like it should have, like scoped access and controls on how long the data is there, what is the expiry, and transparency around all of that. So
That's
those
great. I mean, yeah,
characteristics kind of help you assure that you are working in a proper clean room.
I mean, it's critical, right? One of the biggest kind of comments I make is you just, I mean, there's so much technology that I've been a part of, a lot of three-letter acronyms, but I feel like clean rooms is one of the first that really focuses on the protection and privacy of the underlying, customer itself, right? The actual assets being used, which is really just the information about individuals. And I think without having a set of standards, a baseline set of standards, a baseline set of protections and protocols in place, like it's just really difficult for any organization to claim they have something called a clean room without fitting into that box as a first point, right? There's going to be all of us are going to differentiate ourselves and kind of how we do the secret sauce and what our specific value is we bring to the market as a clean room. But without those baseline standards, it's a really dangerous road to go down for any organization who's looking to, hey, I want a clean room, I want to invest in a clean room. This company says it's a clean room, but it's really hard to know this early on whether or not some of these organizations are truly at the service of an organization and their underlying customers and consumers. And so obviously it's extremely critical to have these baselines kind of defined across the industry. And obviously I know clean room participants and clean room operators were involved in this process, but can you just give me a sense of who else was involved? It wasn't just clean rooms talking to clean rooms. There was other larger industries kind of involved in this process, correct?
Yeah. This data clean room standards were part of the addressability, rearc addressability working group, which is one of our largest working groups. Actually, it has about 350 plus members that participate in the meetings and discussions, and they represent like everybody in the industry, from publishers to ad tech providers to agencies, representations, and of course, there are pretty much all of the well-known clean room providers are part of that group. Plus, we have experts like who are interested more uh, in the privacy enhancing technologies, like cryptography, secure multi-party computing. So there were experts from organizations who have that expertise. And
That
then
makes sense. Yeah, and I know there's the PET working group as well, who's helping define those standards and those specific definitions of the PETs. And I know there's a lot of crossover purposefully. I think that's I'm a part of the PET working group, also part of the addressability working group, working on clean rooms. So it makes a lot of sense. And so in terms of this document that was released, obviously there's this set of the definition, meaning it's really the set of requirements that a clean room needs to be utilizing to call themselves a clean room. But what else? What other kind of major points or major recommendations or guidelines does the document outline?
So besides just the characteristics of a clean room, the document goes into a little bit more detail on describing, focusing on two aspects like security and privacy. So it describes like what does security mean, what kind of technologies you can deploy, And that's not an exhaustive list. This is just based on
Right.
what's known at that point in time. We know that that thing evolves. And then it has kind of a list and direction for what kind of privacy enhancing technologies can be deployed in a data clean room. It goes into describing the role and functions of a clean room, like what are the different players involved in a clean room, like data contributor, data consumer, data service provider, and a data clean room provider, which can be there. And then the different functions that a data clean room should represent or provide for it to be a functional and easy to use data clean room. Um, the third thing that it goes into, the other thing that it goes into is the type of governance for security and privacy
Right.
that it provide, and then it looks at the criteria that a buyer if you're engaging with the clean room and engaging them, then what kind of criteria you should have in your checklist to evaluate whether this is the right clean room for you, like scalability, speed, computing capabilities, cost. Um, so it's a document that covers all of these areas that will help anyone, one, to understand the clean rooms, one, to understand their role in the clean room, what to expect and what to ask for from a data clean room provider from a privacy and security perspective,
Right.
then be able to evaluate which one is the right one based on their needs.
And look, it makes definitely someone like InfoSum our lives easier when an organization, which I've already started to see happen, ask if we are abiding by and follow these recommendations and guidelines from the IAB Tech Lab. It just kind of puts a smile on my face when I see a client come or a prospect come and ask those types of questions and like, well, actually, we were actually a part of creating this along with a slew of other members. And so it's just really great to see that there are organizations already leaning in, people who already obviously respect the IB Tech Lab and the standards and practices that are being put out, and that now are adopting to use those, even when they're not fully kind of released out of public comment yet. So that those are already kind of good signs that this was a necessary and needed piece of collateral that is going to drive a lot more attention and adoption across the board. And I know there was, some things that were not covered in the document, and I know this isn't a set standard yet. Again, like you said, it's guidelines and recommendations, use cases that you should be applying to clean rooms. How it works, and a little bit more information about what's happening under the hood. But were there things? What were the things that were kind of purposely left out? The IB Tech Lab just did not want to cover, or did not feel was what they were responsible to cover in this particular document.
Yeah, so that was one of the things that we decided early on, like what we would not cover as part of this recommendation and guidance, and that was the legal and policy
Mhm.
aspect of engaging in a data clean room for a couple of reasons. One, we wanted to focus on the work on helping you understand what a clean room is from a function and technology perspective. And the second one was that the policy it can change from company to company based on their needs and how they conduct their business, and that's probably a separate project in itself to define a policy for data clean rooms. And the third one was like the policy or the legal of privacy based on the privacy regulations is a layer that will always be there over and
Right.
above any technology that you work on. And we don't typically define that. That's best defined by each company's legal counsels. That's their job, and
Yeah.
that's whom they should be taking their advice from, and not from Tech Lab. So we didn't go into those areas.
Right, like Tech Lab is not a legal entity. I know you have a legal working group that digs into the policy and all of that, but which is separate but somewhat connected, right? And I know there's also going to be interplay, which is kind of the beauty of the Tech Lab and all these members being involved. You have the addressability working group focused on things like clean rooms and like ID standards and identity. You have some of these policy working groups focusing on what policies are coming in that are going to affect some of the technology standards being created. And then you have the PET working group, which is specifically focusing on the actual like cryptography and the machine learning and all the things that are happening under the hood of some of the specific protocols and tactics and tools used. And from your opinion, obviously, you said earlier that a clean room needs to have, let's say, at least one kind of PET or privacy enhancing technology utilized. And so, from your experience thus far, working in the PET working group, working in the clean room or addressability working group, what like kind of interplay have you seen between those two groups, and how have you seen them influencing each other?
So the privacy, like one thing I wanted to mention was that for the policy parts, like IAB does run, like I said, IAB, that's kind of IAB's role to
Yeah.
work on the policies and get all the policy folks together if there is a need for a common policy to be defined. So they have the IAB Policy Affairs Council where this kind of discussion can happen
Right.
if there's a need for common policy definitions for clean rooms in future.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. So the privacy enhancing technologies group is an even more focused group on focusing on the technologies that is a whole new body of privacy technologies called privacy enhancing technologies, which basically help ensure that there is the privacy is inbuilt into your tech stack automatically versus as a add-on later on. So some of these technologies deal with like on device, keeping the minimizing the data
Right.
and keeping it as much on device as you can and taking only what is necessary out of it, and then protecting it with cryptography, or when you're running an operation, then having things like differential privacy or k anonymity with minimum thresholds, and adding noise to the data, or doing a more sophisticated secure multi-party computing. So that
Mhm.
working group focuses on these technologies and their applications to ad tech. So that's what that working group works on.
Makes
So
sense. Yeah.
yeah,
And
so
because
like
I think a lot of people get. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
when we need help, like when we're defining, PETs, the needs for data clean rooms, that's when we would go to that group, and experts from that group would advise like these are the list of technologies that can be applied in a data clean room that you can use.
Because I think there's a lot of confusion where people think like a clean room is a PET, and people who are in this space and kind of who are doing this day in and day out understand like that's not true. A clean room is a solution that has been created that utilizes these PETs in various ways, right? But PETs and privacy enhancing technology is used throughout the tech stack, right, in many different ways, when from storage to activation to all the different protocols in between. And so I think it's just important for us to know that there's obviously connectivity and synergies between PETs and data clean rooms, obviously, but we have to understand that privacy enhancing technologies is new, but it is something that is critical to essentially understand and standardize and really implement and adopt across the entire marketing and advertising ecosystem. Because again, clean rooms solve critical problems, but it's only in a certain kind of bubble of use cases, where I think PETs are obviously expansive and kind of can cover the gambit across the entire ecosystem, across the entire tech stack.
Yeah, so like data clean room is about data collaboration. It
Yes.
describes the overall operation, from matching to activation to how to protect the data throughout the use case. That's what data clean room does, and PTs are a technology layer that can be used inside a data clean room, outside of it. Like in our OPJA spec, we're talking about how to use this in a matching, which is part of the data clean room, but then also, use it in activation, which is outside of a data clean room.
So let's jump into OPJAS, right, or OPJAS, just to give a quick overview, kind of what it is and what it's meant to do. From my understanding, obviously, it's to enable that ability to do the matching and collaboration in a standard protocol, right? Essentially, creating an open source version of this ability to make it easier for organizations to join their data sets together in a more democratized fashion, but also kind of level setting and creating a baseline for how clean rooms can be used more robustly across the ecosystem. I kind of want to hear your point of view in terms of what that is and what it's meant to provide to the ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, at the shortest and simplest explanation, OPJA, OPJA is a specification to determining overlapping audiences between two parties.
Mm-hmm.
A buyer may want to know, like, amongst these publishers, where can I find the audience that I'm looking for, and they could use OPJA for that. It has two kind of two parts in it. One is the matching server, or how do you do the matching? And that defines the format of how you do provide the input and what is the output that you get out of it. And then the second part is the activation protocol. Like, how do you activate this in your either it's open programmatic or even if it's direct sold inventory? How do you ensure that that the uh, the privacy is preserved while you're activating it? So that's what it describes in terms of matching. It describes, the inputs. It's we've narrowed it down to email and phone numbers as the match keys that are one
Okay.
of the requirements for any matching. But the plan is in backlog in future to include other types of IDs that can be used for matching purposes. And then it describes the full encryption protocol on how do you encrypt the outputs so that when they're used in the activation protocol, they cannot be, it can prevent data leakage and
Mhm.
ensuring the privacy is preserved throughout the use, right from the publisher right to the advertiser.
Makes sense. Yeah, and I think for simple joining between two organizations, obviously for audience activation, it's a definitely a necessary first step. And I know a big kind of buzzword over the past, let's say, well, you could say this has been a buzzword kind of in an evergreen kind of capacity, but at least related to clean rooms in the past 6 months to a year, interoperability has been a hot topic for organizations. Because there are a lot of clean room choices out there and a lot of clean rooms that aren't necessarily interoperable with each other. But why is interoperability such an important subject or topic when we're talking about data clean rooms in your perspective?
So three reasons, right? Like, today, advertisers work with multiple publishers and multiple sources of inventory. And similarly, the publishers or sources of inventory work with multiple advertisers. And then we also have data clean room providers who help support both of their use cases. And there also you have like multiple companies competing. So every advertiser has a choice. So the way interoperability helps in this is that each entity can choose the provider they want, or they can build their own clean room, like some big publishers have probably done,
Yep.
but still allow to easily interact and collaborate with each other. So if I choose, say for example, as a publisher, if I choose InfoSum as my data clean room, and so my advertiser with the OPJ specification, if I'm trying to find overlapping audiences, I have to build. The advertiser has to build their data set and their APIs or enablers only once, and then they can talk to InfoSum, they can talk to another publisher's clean room. Similarly, on the publisher side, they have to build everything just once, and they can interoperate between clean rooms. That's the uh, benefit that the specification for interoperability provides. It brings in the efficiency. You know, depending on how many you're working with, you can multiply like 5x or 10x. Efficiency will be the benefit.
Yeah, and obviously, the InfoSum was involved in this spec as well, and obviously for us, it's critical that we remove any level of friction where we can in terms of the adoption of clean rooms. Obviously, to benefit ourselves as a clean room, operator and provider, but more so just because I'm a believer in the future state of privacy centricity across the ecosystem. I really think it's the only way that we're going to right in the ship in terms of the advertising ecosystem, keeping the open internet free with the use of advertising, but we don't need all of the lossy protocols and risky protocols that we've kind of built all of this up on top of. And I think that, Option is just one necessary step forward to help, just again, make it easier for organizations to utilize this technology without feeling that it's a lift or a burden or it's lack of efficiency. And so I think, again, we're all in this as well. We want to see it move forward. And so with OPSHA kind of open for public comment, the data clean room, guidelines and recommendations open for public comment. What's next? When is the public comment over for everyone on the call? Everyone on the podcast who's listening. How do they gain access to this, and kind of what are the next steps after this the public comment has been closed?
So the public comment period was over a couple days back
Oh,
on
it's already
2nd
over.
April.
All right.
Yeah, but our next meeting is going to be in the second week of May.
Okay.
So we'll be collating all the public comments and presenting them to the working group for final disposition by the working group, whether they accept a public comment or they reject a public comment. And based on that, the final version would be published. I'm hoping like by within a month after that, like
Okay.
second by early June, we should be able to publish the final versions of both of these documents. But that's not the end of the road because we already have some backlog items for OPJA, like I said, like some other type of IDs and some more information on some of the encryption methods. So that work will go on, and we'll release like a version 1.1 when all the information about those is ready. There's already a proposal about so based like when we looked at the specifications, interoperability specifications, we realized that the kind of data sets that are involved in different operations are different. And so what we will end up having is a library of specifications. Like OPJ is the first one. We
Right.
already have a proposal for a similar interoperable specification for measurement and attribution. And if you look at that, the what you get from your typical digital data from web and mobile is very different than what you might get for a TV
Right.
environment. Might end up having a separate one for that addresses that particular data set. So that way, we'll evolve a library of interoperability standards that all of the providers can use to make it a more efficient transaction for everyone.
That's fantastic. And in terms of the recommendations and guidelines, obviously, I think we're also there's going to be other versions of that, I'm assuming, as we expand, whether it's going to include some of these additional standards as, a kind of more of an integrated release. But I'm assuming there will be other standards and protocols, or at least recommendations from the IAB Tech Lab related to clean rooms, correct?
Yeah.
So just kind of changing gears slightly, what additional standards, let's say outside of clean rooms, would you like to lean into? Are there things that are initiatives that you have not kind of explored that you think that you personally or you at the Tech Lab really are looking to do within the next, let's say, 18 months?
Yeah. So one is that it's already started work on like a couple of these. One is the guidance, similar to what we did for data clean rooms, is for ID solutions. There's a whole new breed of ID solutions that have come to market in the last
Yeah,
couple of
another
years.
confusing area. Yes.
So that's the next thing that we're picking up in the addressability working group to provide like guidance and recommendations on ID solutions. Going into details of what is an ingredient of an ID solution, so people can assess themselves what is sustainable and what works for them.
Right.
And then the second one is going back to the pets working group to provide more deeper dives into these specific technologies. The first one that we're picking up is differential privacy,
Good.
um, and idea is to develop that. Like there's enough literature on differential privacy out there. You don't have to define differential privacy or
Mhm.
develop differential privacy, but what we want to do is define um, the guidance or practices around application of differential privacy to different use cases in advertising, like for targeting, for attribution, or for doing any other operation that is typically a part of an advertising workflow. So that's those are the two immediate ones that we are picking up. There's work going on the accountability platform, and that also might need help from the privacy enhancing technologies working group,
Okay.
uh, uh, which is basically to I don't know if you're aware or people are aware that a couple of years back, as part of the REAC, we released an accountability platform or accountability framework, which is like collecting blood samples. So based on your you would post certain samples of data into a repository where then they can be matched, and so you can understand like all the participants in the supply chain are honoring the privacy choices that the consumers have made.
Okay.
There's work going on making a final version of that and rolling that out.
That's pretty important. What's the best place for people who are listening to find out about all the things happening at the Tech Lab?
If you're a member, you get a regular newsletter, participating in the working groups, and of course we do put out like news releases. We have a blog section where we put out what's coming up. We're active on social media, Twitter and LinkedIn mostly, where we put
Yeah.
out everything. So yeah, those are the channels. And if you have any questions, it's a very simple. Just write to support at iabtechlab.com. We have a system where we address all the questions within like 48 hours.
Oh, well, okay. Is there anything we didn't cover or mention that you wanted to add in?
Yeah, I just wanted to like not add in, but kind of reiterate that um, since we're talking about data clean rooms and privacy, uh, you know, digital advertising has been a great like enabler for the internet for all the things that we use online, and I think the industry should. And it's undergoing a lot of changes because of regulations, because of
Yeah.
platform changes, and we should really embrace these changes. I think because all of our lives have moved online, and it's really important to honor and preserve privacy of consumers throughout the supply chain. So yeah, that's just want to reiterate that the industry should embrace that, and there are there's a lot of new technology, there's a lot of new ways of doing things that balance the business needs with the privacy needs, and we should work towards that.
Yeah, I definitely second that. I think obviously policy can never go as fast as technology moves, but I know we're trying to catch up, and I know obviously the tech lab and all the members involved are doing the best we can to provide the intelligence and the experience in terms of the fact that ad tech is one of the major organizations in technology that does move extremely fast. When we build things in ad tech and martech, I think we're really on the cutting edge of many of the technologies that the regular consumers just see, kind of throughout their average day, or people are talking about on different types of social media. But I think people don't realize that ad tech's an area where a lot of that R&D and exploration is happening many times first, because there's so many dollars being used to drive kind of that innovation. And I think all of us now have just taken a step back and looked at the progression we've made, and I think that the earlier we can start to adopt some basic protocols, basic procedures, basic accountability, as you said, as we build and go fast. I think that that's something critical that we have to do as a group. So I just want to thank you and the Tech Lab for taking on that responsibility and kind of helping everyone kind of come together in a community manner to do this the right way. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Happy to do that all the time.
And finally, this podcast is all about the individuals who have pioneered, new ways to use data to deliver better customer experiences. So when you look at people you admire in the industry, we're always looking for who the next person is that we should have on to have a, intelligent conversation with. Anyone you recommend from your roster of people you admire that we should have on the show?
I think Oren, the founder of LiveRamp, I don't know if you've had him, but if you can, like I think he was one of the first ones to see the value and the importance of data and identity for an open, ad-supported internet.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has very good perspectives on
Okay.
on data.
Great. We will definitely drop him a line to get him on. I don't think we've had him on yet, but we'll definitely look to do that. And so again, I just want to thank you for your time here. Thank you, Shailley, for taking the time to speak with InfoSum and myself on Identity Architects. And hopefully I'll see you at a Tech Lab event soon, or on a webinar very, very soon.
Yep, looking forward to that. And thank you for having me here. And yeah, please, the last message, like everyone, we are happy to have more people on our working groups and collaborate to build the right foundations.
Yeah, be a Tech Lab member. Everyone, go online and sign up for it. It's definitely a worthwhile experience that I have been a part of for many years across many companies. So thank you again for your time and all of your wisdom here, and look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thanks again to Shailley for joining us on Identity Architects. Data cleanrooms really have become a must-have piece of technology for companies to unlock the full potential of their first-party data. So it was great to hear about the work the IAB Tech Labs is doing to define clear standards and requirements. All that leaves for me to do is remind you to hit that subscribe button so you know when the next episode of Identity Architects lands. But until then, thanks for listening.